All right, Ray. So we have some switch up here at Nissan. We have a real car guy, is who they're saying is going to come in as the new CEO, and I think now is probably the time we see a switch up in regime change with Stellantis. Might be a little bit too little, too late, and there might be the same story here with Nissan now, where okay, we still have this situation where we had the merger fell through and we're still back to where they might not have enough cash to last throughout the end of the year. So what do you think are the things that the new CEOs are going to come in here and have to change to really save Nissan?
Well, first of all, the first thing you have to say is they're so much better off having a real car guy as opposed to a faux car guy. Uh, I mean, why wouldn't you want a car guy running a car company? What do I think he's got to do? I think he's got. I I believe in my heart of hearts that everything has to be on the table. That there is nothing that is sacred as to how they're doing it at Nissan at the moment. So they need to look at everything internally in Japan and here in the United States. And I think it's just me. I think they make too many models here in the United States. I know they want to think of themselves as being Toyota. They're not Toyota. They can barely make it as Nissan. So they don't have to have a competitive car in every lineup to what Toyota has. The Altima was at one time a decent selling car until they had transmission issues. They can fix the transmission issues. The Maxima at one time was a really popular car. The Sentra was a popular car. The Versa was never a popular car. You don't need the Versa. Sentra, Altima, Maxima, a pickup truck, a Pathfinder. Do you really need the Armada? Do you really need the Armada? I mean, there's just certain things they could look at, and I think that should be on the table, like cutting down the amount of product that you offer and just making the product that you do offer better and more outstanding than its competitors. What do you
And
think?
here's the problem where you look at something like a Nissan Altima, and I like the comparison that you said where they want to be like a Toyota.
They do.
But when you go in here and look at a 2025 Nissan Altima and what you're paying for, MSRP on it's $31,000. I mean, obviously the dealership's giving a break because they have to right now.
Yes.
But MSRP 31,000, MSRP 29,000, MSRP 31,000. When you're getting into those kind of numbers, you're very, very close to a Toyota Camry, which is a very similar car. And Toyota has the name of reliability. They have really the name of, I feel like just a better brand over Nissan. So when you're looking at buying a Nissan versus a Toyota, I think the consumer, the only way that they're going to be pushed toward a Nissan is if they get it $5,000 or $6,000 cheaper than a Toyota. And it's just not the case right now, even with the discounts coming from the Nissan, even from discounts coming from the Nissan dealerships, you're still within $3,000-$4,000 of that Toyota Camry. And at the end of the day, that consumer is going to say no to Nissan and yes to Toyota, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% correct. I that's why I think that they have to pick certain models, and they have to just make each one of the models that they will sell, whether it be a Sentra, whether it be an Altima, whether it still be a Maxima, whatever they want to do with the Pathfinder, whatever they want to do with a pickup truck. And they need to make each one of those so compelling. Now, how do you make it compelling? You could load it up with more standard features than your competitors and price it several $1,000s less than your competitors so that you can start attracting customers back to your brand, which I think could make sense. But you have to look at all the offerings and go, okay, we don't need this one anymore. We don't need that one anymore. What the hell do we need the Armada for? Sometimes brands have to realize that they can't be all things to all potential customers. And there's certain segments, market segments, that they don't do particularly well in. And I'm guessing that the Armada is probably one of them. Okay. And if it's not that profitable for you and you're not doing particularly well in that space, get out of it. You don't have to be all things to all people. Just be real good at the things you are to the people that want to buy the things that you're offering. So really spruce up the Sentra, the Ultima, the Maxima. Make a decent pickup truck. The path. There are things they could do that would increase sales, draw attention, and so they have to look at cutting. I think he has to look at cutting back the amount of offerings that they have.
And look at this. Look at this Nissan Armada. It's a 2025. This is the upper level trim.
Yes.
$80,000 MSRP. Who is the buyer for this vehicle? If somebody's spending $80,000 on a vehicle, they're not buying a Nissan.
Well, you would think not. Can't you get a Yukon for that?
You can get GMC, you can get a Chevy for that. You can get Sequoias. You can get Sequoias for that price point. I just don't see this is almost, and it's funny that I always combine these two companies when I'm talking about the bad decisions that are made, but this, and you look at Jeep with the Grand Wagoneer, like it's like whoever was designing or making the price points for these vehicles, that they're not in the real world. Like they don't understand that there's people that have choices with this amount of money, and they're not luxury brand. $80,000 for a big SUV, that's approaching those luxury prices, if not already there. And I feel like it's a problem of identity. And when I think of cheap brand,
yes,
I think Stellantis products. Yeah. I think Jeep, Dodge, Ram, that kind of stuff. I also think Nissan. So if I'm a consumer out there and I want to buy one of the cheaper model vehicles, I'm probably looking at those couple brands for what I'm looking for. And then I go to the lot and then I see a $34,000 Ultima, and then I see a $80,000 Armada. Well, I'm thinking, maybe this is not the cheap brand that I thought it was anymore. And I'm probably going to Toyota, Honda, and looking to see what they have for available.
If we can say that the big three in Japan were and are Toyota, Honda, Nissan. Those are the big three. Nissan is closer to the fourth place vehicle, which would be Mazda or Subaru. Okay, so you don't, they're at the bottom end of the big three. Kind of like Chrysler was the bottom end of the big three against General Motors and Ford. And when you're at the lower end of it, that doesn't mean that you can compete at the higher price points. Compete at your specialties. And if your specialty is well equipped, fairly priced, smaller vehicles, then so be it. And because at one time, the Sentra was a really, really popular car. At one time, the Ultima was a pretty decent car. At one time, the Maxima was thought of as a really pretty spectacular car when they were designed and being sold as the four-door sports car. I mean, it was a popular, attractive vehicle. So just stay in, I guess in car talk, stay in your lane. Okay? If Toyota and Honda are in the left-hand passing lane and you're the one being passed all the time, get really good at being in the right-hand lane. That's your lane.
Don't you think, excuse me, don't you think there's an opportunity for a brand to come into this market? And it could be something like Nissan and offer a $16,000, $17,000, $18,000 vehicle and just clean up and do a bunch of volume sales for their dealers. And then on the other side of the spectrum, if you're looking at like bigger trucks, Ram, it feels like they could come in and offer a $40,000 truck and just clean up. I think that opportunity is there. If there would just be one car manufacturer come in and say, okay, we've been greedy for too long. Now let's give the people exactly what they want. And they come in and they mass produce one of these cheaper level, I say cheap, more affordable. That's the word that they would want to use. More affordable vehicle just for that niche of the population who can't pay $50,000 for a vehicle. I feel like that brand would absolutely just clean up in this market right now. And I'm surprised there's not been one manufacturer even rumoring, like you saw like Tesla do it a couple years ago, saying, okay, we're gonna have a $25,000 electric car. Why is there not a gas manufacturer that's coming out and saying, okay, we're going to come out and have a $15,000 car, we're going to have a $25,000, a $30,000 full size pickup. It's going to be bare bones, but it's going to be at the price point that you want. Why does this not exist?
Well, let me preface this by saying it should exist.
Right.
The reason I believe it doesn't exist is the numbers that they'd have to sell at in order to make it profitable enough to do it is what the problem would be. But the reality is that it's the only way you can expand your market at the moment, because more and more people are falling by the wayside saying, I can't afford to buy a new car. So if somebody were to come into the market and just say, you know what, you've been ignored for far too long, we are going to cater strictly to you and produce those $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 cars, those $25,000 bare bone pickups. Even though there wouldn't be a lot of margin in those cars, both as a manufacturer and as a retailer, there could be sizable enough volume to make it work, because suddenly you could be bringing a large portion of the population back into the market to buy new cars. Okay. Which ultimately could end up forcing used car values to decline, because at a certain point, you're going to say to yourself, do I want to buy a 100,000 mile 6-year-old Honda CRV for $19,000? Or do I want to buy a brand new Nissan, whatever the hell it is, for $15,000 with no miles on it and a warranty? And I think that would, I think people would choose, if it's marketed correctly, the $15,000 car, which is going to put pressure on used car prices, in my opinion.
And here, I mean, there's been examples throughout history that we've seen car manufacturers like go after this market. I remember Kia doing buy one get one free Kias a long time ago, and those were cheap cars then. But Ford Escort, they were cheap. They sold a ton. The Toyota Tercel, I remember the Geo Metro was another one of the really cheap cars that manufacturers used to go after this market. Tiny cars for just someone who wants transportation. And I want to bring up this too. Do you think that it's more of a driver that government regulation and EPA stuff and all these things that cars have to have now? Is it making it to where it's almost impossible for these manufacturers to be able to produce a car they can sell for $15,000, $16,000 and still make any kind of money on it?
That would be part of it. And I would say this. There would never be a better time in history to approach a presidential administration and say, we need you to roll back some of the mandated items that have to be on every car so that we can produce in large enough volumes at low enough prices to get the American people back into new cars. So, if this was a Harris administration, you couldn't go to them and say, gee, can we do that? With the Trump administration, I think you could go to them and say, we could figure out how to build way more cars here in the United States of America if suddenly you said this item or that item or all these items that have been accumulated over the years don't have to be in the bare bones car. and I think you would find people in this administration that would be amenable to that, especially if it's characterized as bringing more production back into the United States.
Yeah,
So,
I 100% agree with that, and I feel like if we do get some rollback in the requirements that a lot of these manufacturers have, we're still going to be a year and a half, 2 years out from them making changes to
oh
be able to
sure,
implement this kind of stuff. So, even if we do get some of that rollback from this administration, obviously any kind of rollback takes time. From the administration, they have to pass laws, things like that. Anyway, but then on top of that, then production takes a very long time. R&D takes a very long time. So hopefully it would be a little bit easier to just take crap out of cars than it would be to put it in them. But I would think it would still be a while. And two, these manufacturers, the more money that they can charge for cars, the more things they can put in cars, the more margin they make. So at the end of the day, even if they do roll back some kind of regulations, then the car manufacturers might not want to take the stuff out of there anyway because they're making so much money off of it.
well, I mean, I understand that a lot of safety innovations that have happened over time are, and the reason that you find them in the cars today is because they are mandated by government regulations. The backup camera, when you put your car in reverse, those have been around for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is. But the first people that put them in cars, it wasn't required federally to have that in a vehicle. But the government looks at it and go, well, that's a great safety feature. That should be in every car. Well, yeah, it is a great safety feature. But how did we get by for 100 years without them? No, seriously, how did we do that? And I get it's terrible, and it's terrible to think of that. One of the reasons for it is so that you can see kids behind the car if they're playing when you're backing out of your driveway or something. I get that. I, you know, and it's terrible for when there are accidents like that. But you have to, at a certain point, look at it and go, how many of those accidents have there been? How many will we actually be preventing? And is it worth all the extra costs that are involved when it comes to requiring them in every car? So I get safety. I'm all for safety. I'm all for seat belts. I'm all for anti-lock braking systems. But there's certain safety features that you don't need, that you can get by without them. And so I just think sometimes you have to put safety aside to a certain degree because you have the actuaries out there that can do the exact cost analysis for you and tell you how many lives you're saving as opposed to if you don't do it. And it just financially it just might make sense so that less expensive, more affordable cars can be built and sold in this country again.
I think the problem breaks down, which is that's a grim example of what we're talking about here. But I think what we're really talking about is that the people who are writing these laws, who are making these regulations or whatever, the money that's going to cost extra that they're going to have to pay for their product, it doesn't matter to them because they've got tons and tons of money. I think what we need here's the fix, Ray.
Okay.
We need to have an honorary broke dude on the panel of each and every one of these laws that when the law's about to get signed or the regulation's about to get passed, he just raise his hand. Yes, broke dude. Okay, how much it's going to cost? So we, whenever they go through this, and then maybe they can actually break down and see what it's going to cost to the American public who they're actually making the laws for, because the people who are making these laws, they are not average Americans. They are very
No.
well-to-do people, and they're not living paycheck to paycheck. And the average American, paycheck to paycheck,
Yeah.
and he need to know how much it's going to cost, right?
Well, yeah, and you know, it's no matter what you do, it's not like you're going to be wrapped up in bubble plastic, you know. So the cars are never going to be 100% safe. Can they be safer than what they've been? Are they safer today than when I started in the industry in 1977? Yes, they are. Is all of what we spent to make them so much safer today, has it made it better? It's made it less affordable for more people. It's made it where basic transportation is now suddenly a real stretch for a lot of people. And we have to remember that when we talk about basic transportation, it's not just the cost of the vehicle, it's the cost to insure the vehicle. It's the cost to maintain the vehicle. You know, for all the electronics that are in vehicles, when they fail, they are much more expensive to repair and replace than what it used to be. So the ultimate cost has gotten out of hand for most people. And maybe by decontenting and deregulating some of the things, we can bring that cost back down to where it is more affordable for a broader swath of the American buying public.
100%.